Munster, Deputy, you have 30 seconds to put your question. Thank you.
To ask the Minister if he can provide an update on the matter of insurance green cards for motorists crossing the border in the event of a no-deal Brexit, and if he can provide further detail on the 1 month's notice the Minister had indicated would be required of motorists, and if he can outline the process of production of the green cards and what the application process will be for the motorists, including if there will be a cost, and if he will provide details of all the interventions made by the Minister with the EU and Britain on behalf of Irish motorists to ensure that there will be a seamless transition.
Thank you very much, Deputy Minister. 2 minutes.
I'd like to thank Deputy Munster for a question. The Green Card is issued within the 48 countries covered by the Council of Motor Insurance Bureaus and is a document whose production may be required to prove that insurance cover is in place for vehicles travelling between these countries where alternative legislative provisions are not in place. All EU member states are party to this system, but the EU does not require production of a green card when travelling between member states. However, the default position is that green cards are required for vehicles entering the EU from third countries unless the EU Commission declares otherwise. If the UK were to exit the EU without a deal, the default position would be that green cards would be required for EU-registered vehicles entering the UK and for UK-registered vehicles entering the EU, while the Government remains of the view that the best and only way to ensure an orderly withdrawal of the UK from the EU, including avoiding the necessity for green cards, is the ratification of the withdrawal agreement reached between the EU and the UK. The Government recognises that it is prudent to plan for the possibility of a no-deal exit. The motor insurance industry is therefore behaving prudently and being prepared for the possibility that green cards will be required, even though this is not a desirable outcome. In line with the current expected Brexit date of 29th of March 2019, the MIB of Ireland has indicated that insurers and insurance brokers will begin issuing green cards to policyholders from March if no agreement has been reached between the UK and the EU on Brexit or the process has not been further delayed. At that point, anyone who plans on driving their Irish-registered vehicle in Northern Ireland or Britain should contact their insurer or insurance broker 1 month in advance of their expected travel date to ensure they receive the green card in sufficient time. The MIBI has responsibility for the operation of the green card scheme in Ireland, but individual insurance companies or brokers will issue them on behalf of the MIBI. The insurers and insurance brokers are commercially run organisations and are independent in the actions they take. The application processes involved are a matter for each individual company. Likewise, any cost is a matter for the individual companies. The MIBI has indicated that some companies might charge a small administration fee. As part of its contingency planning, the Government has raised this matter directly with the European Commission, seeking an agreement from it to set a date from which green cards would not be required. This is a matter between the EU and the UK.
We'll have further opportunity and the rest of the replies on the record. Deputy Munster.
Thanks, Ciarán. Minister, there are 68,000 vehicle journeys per day across the border, and we're 6 weeks out from a no-deal Brexit scenario. Now, at last week's committee meeting, I had asked you, along with others, some questions about the insurance green card, and you had said that you were unaware of some of the circumstances or the conditions around it, and I think that's fair to say. But there was 2 things that you did say, and one was that there are 400,000 green cards being printed, and they will be on demand. In other words, it's up to the person to apply for them. But the other thing that you had said was that the period of 1 month's advance notice would be required for the delivery of the green card to an individual. Now, you've just said that the Motor Insurance Bureau or industry have said that they will start issuing from March. But it's the case now that as of today, we're 6 weeks away. So if it takes a month for delivery, then that will only give 2 weeks for people to apply. So I'm just wondering, in the course of the conversation, did you flag that up with them? There's going to be a volume of people that are going to be forced to apply for these green cards, and did you flag that up with them about the short time frame and the chaos that it will cause if it's not done properly?
The Deputy is obviously very well aware of the extent and the volume, the numbers of these green cards that will be needed and be possibly applied for or distributed by the insurance companies. The insurance companies obviously are taking the initiative in this, and they're obviously going to be printing at a rate of knots in order to satisfy the demand that may or may not be there. And this is obviously a preparatory move. I don't need to flag it up with them. They're aware of it. The insurance companies themselves are going to make their own rules about where and when they actually issue the green cards. But I'm pleased to say that they are preparing for a no-deal Brexit, as any prudent companies ought to do in this situation. I certainly didn't flag it with them because they knew about it. The MIBI themselves have already taken the initiative on this particular issue, so it doesn't take me to do that. But obviously it would be preferable if this wasn't happening at all. But if the MIBI decide that they want to do it or want to charge for it, that's up to themselves. My position is quite simply that I would rather that this didn't have to happen. But if it's happening, so be it.
Thank you. Deputy, final minute.
Thanks, Taoiseach, I raise these questions because I'm a border county TD, and you know, if I wanted to travel up to South Armagh from County Louth, the 30-minute journey, I mean, none of us want to have to produce a green card to travel within our own country. But I'd asked you also at the meeting last Wednesday, had you intervened specifically to deal with a dispensation of some form of dispensation for the, you know, there's 25 million journeys across the border and 300 border crossings on an annual basis. And I had said unless the EU and the British government and you on behalf of this government were to step in, that there would, you know, this would not be possible, a dispensation. So I'm going to ask you again, did you meet with them in relation to this specific issue of a dispensation, and what was the outcome of it? Who did you speak to, and did you also make reference to recognising the existing relationship in relation to motor insurance cover north and south without requirement for green card, and did you bring in the actual common travel area, and did you ask if this dispensation could be accommodated under the Good Friday Agreement?
Thank you, Deputy. Thank you very much. Finally, Minister.
Yeah. The government has raised this matter directly, you're asking about interventions, with the European Commission. And we have looked to it for a date from which green cards would not be required. I hope that would satisfy you as a border county TD and many of your constituents who will be passing backwards and forwards across the border. It is a matter between the EU and the UK, and it would be wholly inappropriate as well as ineffective for an individual member state to seek to make a unilateral intervention with the UK authorities. The setting of a date is possible under Article 8.2 of the Motor Insurance Directive. The Commission has not given agreement to date, and the Government continues to pursue the matter with it. The Commission advised the MIBI and International Council of Bureaus that it is keeping the matter under, and open quotes, close and constant review as part of its Brexit preparedness work.